Hello, everyone, and welcome to the show. It is Local Chat, episode 1853, 4.5 million and 4. I'm your host, Will Crosby. For shorthand, we're going to call this episode 196, just to keep it easy for when we're doing version numbers. But joining me this week, for the first time since I wasn't here, it's David.
Yeah, the first time ever. Yep. First time on the show.
Yep, first time on the show. First time blogger, second time looker. Ian Gibson is also here.
Yep, that's me. I'm just... What? First time blogger, second time looker?
Yeah, this is the second time you've ever looked like this.
Okay. Guys,
Listen,
it's my bedtime. I said this in the it's my bedtime. I'm done.
We do this every Thursday. It's not your bedtime. It's literally
I'm
not.
So tired. I'm so tired. Little peek behind the curtain. It's insanity around here because I'm trying to prep for Extra Life, which means like cleaning the house, getting rid of old furniture, getting some new furniture, doing all sorts of stuff like that. But also, Maggie's car has basically shit the bed. So I've spent the last 2 days negotiating with like 5 or 6 car dealers on price, which has not been terrible, honestly. It's just been exhausting. So I'm toast. I cannot wait for Extra Life to be over.
I can't wait to stop donating to kids. It's just like they've had enough. Yeah. Speaking of donating to kids, today's Halloween. I'm dressed as a almost middle-aged unemployed person. Ian's dressed as Satan, and David's dressed as a normal human being.
Yeah.
I was going to say a middle-aged employed person.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we're doing opposites this year.
Yeah. You guys do anything for Halloween?
No.
I watched John Carpenter's Halloween, and that was it.
I've never seen it. Is it good?
It's okay. I was going to watch The Thing, because I watch The Thing like every couple months. I actually normally watch Hateful Eight and The Thing as a double feature because they're very complementary to each other.
Sorry, every couple months? You rewatch The Thing that frequently?
Every couple of months you watch a 4-hour movie.
Every
only
couple
worth
months
one watch.
I watch Total Recall, The Running Man, Commando, and The Thing. I don't know why. It just and sometimes it's the VHS. Sometimes I put the 4K in. It just depends on how I'm feeling.
That's fair. I feel like I need to give Running Man another shot. I didn't hate it. It just didn't stick with me. Whereas the other ones you mentioned, I'm like, oh yeah, I'd watch those anytime.
Yeah, Running Man's it's not cerebral like Total Recall, and it's not as action packed as Commando. But it is schlocky enough, especially with like all the like Firebolt and like all Jesse Ventura's
the
character
studio
and all
audience
that.
and stuff.
It's pretty good.
The only movie out of that whole list I've seen is The Thing.
The Thing's very good.
You're missing out.
The Thing's great, but that's the only one out of those.
Total Recall is incredible, and like Will says, it actually is like it's got some nice political smarts behind it. It's not just a dumb action movie. We watched Commando together for the first time a couple of years ago, and we were both like, let's just watch Commando, and we were surprised. It's just like, it really is just like a funny, cheesy action movie where they know what they are and they're just leaning into it, and it's kind of great.
I love when he's like holding the guy upside down. He's like, when I said I'd kill you last? He's like, yeah, I lied. Let's go. Such a good moment.
It's just over the top. Yeah.
Yeah, so I watched Halloween, and then I was like, oh, yeah, it's okay. It's very, like, it's the same way we recently watched Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and, like, it is Texas Chainsaw Massacre is a terrible film by any, modern standards, but as the, like, first, slasher movie, like, ever, it is very, like, good, and also the guy, I don't know if I mentioned this on Local Chat, the kids keep walking up to the killer's house, like the first 3 kids, and the killer just like kidnaps them, and by the 3rd kid, the killer or the crazy chainsaw guy, the actor is doing such a good job of like looking around and looking out the windows being like, where the fuck are these kids coming from? Like, what's happening? Like, I normally have to stalk people, and like these kids are just walking into my house. What is wrong? And
this can't be real.
He conveys it so well, but like he's wearing a mask, so he's like looking up and out the eye holes, like double checking all the windows. Like, are there more kids out there? But yeah, it's
like,
one
this
of the
has got to be a
veins
sting operation. Like, surely.
Yeah, it's an origin film of a genre, so it's a little rough, but overall it's a pretty fun movie. Halloween.
I haven't seen that one, but we did watch Friday the 13th, the first one. I think that's what the first one's called, for the first time a couple months ago, and it was the same thing where it's like, by modern standards it's okay, it's a little weak in parts, but because it's like a very original slasher, it's like, okay, I can understand why this hit like it did and why it has like the influence, and
it's a good twist
and
too.
It's canonical in a way. Yeah, good twist, and like the slasher music, like the ee, I think that started in there. So yeah.
So, well, other than Psycho, but yes.
Oh, that's true.
Iconic movie. But Halloween is a holiday. Any other scary movies this month? I watched a lot of scary movies this month. It was awful. I hated it.
I had to work a lot this month, so I have not done a lot else.
Wow. Okay. Well, you hop off, keep working, and we'll cover your games for you.
Catch you next time.
Speaking of video games, David, why don't you tell us about these two video games that you've been playing in your minutes before sleep and minutes before work in the morning?
Yeah. So, first one I played actually out of these two, Zelda: Echoes of Wisdom. Have either of you played this yet? Any of it?
Yeah, I got 2-3 hours in. That was it. I was done.
Okay. I think we're probably at about the same point. I got to the Gerudo Desert.
Oh, I didn't even get that far. I got almost to the end of the first dungeon in the overworld, and I was like, I know what this game is doing. And then I was reading all the reviews, and they're like, it doesn't really do much more than that. And I was like, okay, I could not come back to it. There's too much better stuff to hit.
I got through the first dungeon into the second dungeon, or right before the second dungeon, not into the second dungeon. Or I guess you choose what the second dungeon is from a couple, but I went to Gerudo Desert first. So I went to the Gerudo Desert and did a bit there, and then other stuff came out, and I have had no desire to go back to that game at all, which sucks because like it does some cool things. Like, I like the powers, I like tethering yourself to like things and like going with them, or making them follow you, and it works cool with some of the different things you can summon that like add to your mobility on the map, and like I can feel like I can go anywhere now. But like, the thing that just does it for me is scrolling through the damn menu to get to each power, and the more I get, the more it sucks. And I'm like, I feel like the game wants me to try all of these different things, but puts such a menu barrier into trying all the different things that I use like 3 things.
Yeah.
And that's it to solve all, like, you know, on the video of that square hole, everything goes in the square hole, and that's like the spider for me. And Echoes of Wisdom is like, oh, there's a puzzle. The spider goes in the square hole.
and apparently later on, once you get a block of water, it just becomes grab every enemy and put them in the block of water, and they drown immediately. That's it.
Like fighting enemies is not really an enjoyable experience.
No, it's
like, I even have some things that like are cool and do damage now, but like I summon them and then I wait for them to do work while I watch like a weird voyeur person as my little monsters are fighting each other, and not in like the fun Pokemon way where you like order them to do a thing. You kind of just hope they do the right thing, and the most you can do is kind of target something for them to hit.
Yeah.
It feels this is a very specific reference. Have either of you played Digimon World 1 on the PlayStation 1?
Surprisingly, no.
No.
It feels like Digimon World 1 on the PlayStation 1, and that is not a compliment. Because in that game, you get Digimon, they're like your partner, and you like walk up in battle, but you can't directly order them to do things. You can kind of just suggest what they should do.
Just like Dwarf Fortress.
Sure. I haven't played Dwarf Fortress, I don't know. But you like suggest, you're like, go offensive. And sometimes your Digimon will literally just stand there and look at the sky, and that's what Legend of Zelda Tears of the Echoes of Wisdom feels like sometimes.
I and you're totally right. And the reason why I know you are 100% correct is because the developers felt the same way. And I know that because they were like, at some point they went, fuck, what if we just let you be Link for a little bit? And literally, that was one of the worst things. Sorry, not worst things, but that is one of the things that made me feel so let down about the game was as soon as they revealed that, I was like, oh, you don't have enough faith in your main fucking gimmick in the game, which is like, we're not going to let you fight. You have to like puzzle your way through and figure out how to do this stuff. You don't have enough faith in that. And so you are adding combat back into the game, direct combat. And I was like,
even that, like, it's more fucked up than that, Ian, because when you do that, you turn into Link. The one game where you play as Princess Zelda as the main character, when you want to fucking just hit something, you turn into Link.
Yeah, because women can't hit things.
You don't turn into Sheik. You don't go Super Smash Brothers Zelda. You just become Link and emulate Link.
Yeah.
And I'm like, man, let Zelda be Zelda. I might come back to this. I might not. I don't think you
need to. Yeah. I will say, though, in defense of
I just feel like it's a waste of $60.
Yeah.
I want to play it.
It would be great if the year was not as stacked as it is.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of indies, a lot of stuff coming out, etc. I do think just in defense of the combat, you're right. The combat is a little weird. It feels like the enemies you spawn are always a little bit dumber than the enemies in the world. But I think that's okay if they actually challenged you more and leaned into chaos a bit more with the combat in terms of, oh, here's a room and oh, there's a shitload of enemies and there's all sorts of weird stuff going on. And you really got to get crazy with it to fight back at them. And there's only one or two moments where I felt like that was happening, whereas 99% of the time it was like, oh, there's one enemy in front of me and I have a million different options to do it. Yeah. And most of them are, let me spawn a dumb enemy, a dumb friendly that's going to die. And then I just immediately spawn another one. So it's like, I don't need them to necessarily fix the combat. I just need them to lean into the sandbox chaos element that they can easily pull off with this game, but they're not. They're presenting like very simple scenarios screen by screen, and it's like, you're letting me do crazy things. You should throw crazy challenges at me at the same time.
Yeah, that one's been a bit of a letdown. I'm kind of surprised it reviewed as highly as it did.
Yeah, it was in like the 80s, right?
It was in the 80s, and I'm thus far it must get better. That's part of what I've been telling myself. I'm like, this must get better if it's reviewing in the 80s. Like there must be a turning point that I'm
the
not
only thing I can kind of believe in hearing people talk about it is, and the people who played through it, was that they found enough of those weird little combos like the water block, or like I'm gonna jump over the map walls in the overworld using tables and stuff, that they felt good enough in quote unquote breaking the game that joy carried them through and got them to an 80 review score at the end. But that's not, I'm seeing right through that, where I'm like, even if I get to that point, it's not going to feel satisfying.
Yeah. It feels like a 7 that it's like 7 realistically, but they enjoyed it and it wasn't offensive. So they're like, it's like
it's a 7 that Nintendo made, so it's an 8.
Yeah, so
I was
it's
literally
an 8.
about to say that. I never believed in Nintendo glasses, but this feels like Nintendo glasses got it at least an extra point here.
There's games that are probably better than Echoes of Wisdom overall, but have those like offensive, not actually offensive, but like annoying parts to people where you're just like, fuck this game, 7. Like I don't want to deal with this aspect of it, even though the other aspect is really great. Kind of seems like that. Enough
of that.
I was
speaking
gonna
of a
make a
7 out of 10.
simile or metaphor joke to get us over there. Like or as I say.
The other game I've been playing literally at any moment that I can have free, getting a lot of Steam Deck and PlayStation Portal time out of this one, is Metaphor ReFantazio. ReFantazio? I don't know how you say the last.
I don't know. I've
I
been
assume
hearing
it's Italian or
ReFantazio,
something.
but I don't know what the actual one is. I feel like people are saying ReFantazio, but I don't know if that's correct or not.
Neither do I. Metaphor. I've been playing Metaphor. Hey, do you like Persona games? You're gonna like
Yes and no.
Metaphor.
Yeah.
I don't know how much either of you have played this, or if anyone has talked about this on your channel yet. But
so here's my problem, right? I played Persona 5. Persona 5 is the only Persona game I've played. I really enjoyed it. I also burned out at 60 hours in. And so my big problem is I feel like I would enjoy this game. But I also don't want to play it at all because I'm not going to finish it. I'm probably going to burn out. If you told me this game was 20 hours, I'd be like, fuck yeah.
Shorter than Persona 5 from what I've been told. But
80 hours instead of 100? Fucking, that's the thing, is I don't have time for that anymore. I just don't. I don't have the time or the patience for that anymore. I feel like I would love this game if I had the time or the patience.
Yeah. That's fair. It's very long. This is one of those games that I feel like they were trying to evolve or do something different than Persona 5, but didn't quite get far enough away. And some of the changes they made I really like, and some of the changes they made I'm like, this isn't an enjoyable thing. So the biggest things that are different from your Persona, and not super different. None of the systems are different. They're all the fucking same. Except for combat, all of the like social systems are basically identical. They put some different paint, different UI on what was Persona, like social links and a bunch of other stuff. They're the fucking same thing. But the dungeons in Persona were, for the most part, getting into the psyche of a character. So I felt like in Persona, I got to know who a character was, what motivated them, what made them who they are, at a more in-depth level than you do in most like RPGs, right?
Yeah.
When it comes to Metaphor, that's not the case. You're not doing any weird mind dungeon stuff. You're going through a fantasy world. So I feel like, since they didn't really change the social link system at all to compensate, I don't feel like I know the characters as well. There's some that I like. So there's a couple that I'm like, yeah, these dudes rule. But there's a lot where I'm like, I want to know so much more about you, and I don't know that I'm going to. I'm probably like 50 hours into this game. But like, yeah, I don't feel like I get as much of the characters as I do in like a Persona game. So I feel like I'm missing that. But on the combat end, they've added a lot more stuff that seems to be pieced from their other games. Instead of just every character getting one turn each time, with your like, if you hit the weak point, someone gets a second turn. They have these turn gems. And taking a normal turn uses the full gem, hitting a weakness uses the half, but you can also do other things in your turn to make them half. So like, if someone doesn't have an effective ability, they can just pass and it'll only use half to go to the next person. You can do like, they're called synthesis moves, but where it takes two characters acting at the same time, that takes up 2 turn icons. But if you like use their halved ones already, it'll take 2 half turn icons instead of 2 full turn icons. So like, there's some cool stuff with that I've heard comes from like the mainline Shin Megami Tensei games. Like it's a offshoot of that. And I like that system. I think it's cool. It adds a lot of like manipulating who's going to actually take turns on your team, and manipulating weaknesses and stuff to a heavier degree than I think Persona usually does, which I like. I like the depth that brings. What I really despise as an unlucky gamer is when you miss an attack, it uses 2 of those turn things. And there are particular enemies in the game who just constantly buff their evasion. So you're just whiffing all the time. And it's getting better because I'm unlocking archetypes, which are the new personas. Basically, they're a little bit different, but mostly the same. And some of them like up your hit, and it compensates. So I'm like finally getting at the point at 50 something hours in where I can kind of counter enemies that have that ability. But man, early on, I ran into some fish with some legs and like rapiers, and they just upped their dodge, and it took me like 20 turns to hit them.
Jesus.
And it was so unfun. And there's a lot of stuff like that in this game. Solid.
Thank
you. Good dab.
That has kind of, it's like, oh, this combat system's really cool, but man, there's a few things that are just annoying. Excuse me, annoying and not fun. Like built in within that system. Like there's a way bigger emphasis on buffs and debuffs than I think the Persona games in the past, which I know some people like that. I'm not a huge fan of like the stacking buffs and debuffs. I think they kind of just feel like my turns are being wasted. They're not. Like I know they're making me stronger, but like it just feels like I don't know. I don't feel the serotonin rush to like finding a weakness or, you know, removing something's like strength or anything like that. So I'm kind of mixed on it compared to a Persona. It's still a great JRPG. Like the game's great. Love it. Think it's great. They're doing a bunch of really cool story stuff. Also wild, this game came out in an election year. Holy shit. It's like the core thing.
It's really weird that the game is like so pro-Trump. Like I can't believe
it. It's not, man. I like, this is one of those games that the woke gamers aren't yelling about, and that tells me, or sorry, the anti-woke gamers are not yelling about, and that tells me they're just little.
They don't play games.
They don't actually. They don't actually care about the anti-woke thing. They just care about yelling about something. But they played this game and they like it, even though 95% of the content in it is like pro-union, pro-democracy, accepting different races and classes. There's literally a character. It's not subtle. It's not even a little subtle. Not even a little bit.
To them it is.
There's literally a character who you become friends with who essentially says, eat the rich over and over. And then some of her followers go mug a bunch of rich people. And she's like, oh, I didn't mean it literally. And then you have to go help her to like bring those people back in line. But it like, there's, it's great. I think narratively, as a core narrative, way better than Persona. Like the normal Persona games, usually their core narrative was fucking forgettable. It was like, hey, we're fighting the concept of anxiety, which also this game does kind of have in there too. But there's a better core narrative that's driving me forward. So even though I don't have the character love that I do in Persona, I have the deep invested interest into like what's going to happen with the narrative. And like there's a very good in the he pisses me off antagonist way antagonist, and I want to kill him real bad. Absolutely want to do a murder. And is he based on a certain politician? I don't know, maybe.
Shinzo
Tim
Abe.
Waltz.
Yep, the two we always think
stop
of.
talking about his fucking taxi business.
Played man.
But yeah, if you like Persona at all, I feel like you'll probably like Metaphor, unless the only thing you like in Persona is the social links, in which case maybe wait on Metaphor.
That's good to hear.
Good. It's a good game.
It's getting a lot of good praise.
These,
I don't think it'll be my game of the year as much as I love it. Don't think it'll be my game for me.
I haven't played a Persona or a Shin Megami Tensei, but these are JRPGs, and that means
Why did you emphasize the PG in there?
Because they're for children. They're PG-13.
Because these are not PG. These are PG-13/R.
I know.
I would
Oh,
actually
yeah,
mean
no,
stuff.
metaphors definitely are. I'm pretty sure.
No, I'm just curious. So it's like turn-based. You were talking about turns and stuff, but it is like turn-based
Yes.
JRPG combat with menus and things like that.
Turn-based. There is technically some action stuff in the dungeons. Like you have like a dodge and an attack. You can see the enemies before you engage with them, and if you like get in and get some hits in, you can
like
start
first hit.
combat with them stunned.
Gotcha.
Oh, okay.
And then like when you hit them, there's a chance that they lose the stun. So there's a bunch of tactical stuff going in your mind of like, oh, well, I'm fighting 5 enemies. I'm going to see if I can take these 3 out in the first turn. Those other 2 will lose their turn because they're stunned, and then I can still take them out without them ever getting a turn. And when you take folks out without ever getting a turn, you get a big XP and gold boost.
Ooh.
It's like 50%. Like it's chunky. So like
Gorgeous.
they definitely reward you for being smart by stunning them and knocking them out before they get a chance to hit you.
Will, is your question which one of these should you play?
No, I don't. I can't. Sorry.
It is the year of the JRPG, and Will, you are unemployed. So.
I mean, technically, I'm self-employed now.
I mean, it's free time. You got free time.
Yeah, free time, plenty of free time. I have thought about it.
What would you say, David? Because I've only played Persona 5, but that was my first one, and that was a great intro. It felt like I was just like picking it up and running with it and being like, and it blew me away too. You know,
Yeah, I would say putting the length of the games aside, I would go with Persona 5. If you're including the lengths of the game, particularly for Royal, because Royal is the best version of Persona 5, Royal is 125 hours long.
fuck that.
So
I would say
if you're taking length of time into the equation, then I might say maybe play Metaphor, maybe play Persona 3 Reload, because that one is not as long as Persona 5.
Yeah.
It's still long, but it's not as long as Persona 5 is.
And does four have a reload? Or
yet. I assume they are working on that now.
Because that's kind of the 3 options for a new person, right? It's basically Persona 5, Persona 3 Reload, and Metaphor. The Shin Megami Tensei, they feel like they're only for the sickos who are super into these franchises.
The Shin Megami Tensei games are like far more hardcore. So I would recommend starting with a Persona, and if you are like, I want to hate myself with the combat, then you pick up Shin Megami Tensei.
Yeah,
I'll get there.
I would also
someday.
say you don't feel obligated to finish them, because again, I didn't finish Persona 5, but I still put a healthy amount of time in it, and I feel like I got more than enough enjoyment out of it, and I'm like, cool, I had fun, it's really great, you know, I don't have to keep going to finish it, so don't feel like it's like
you'll still have a great time even if you don't finish those games.
Exactly.
Like literally any of them.
Listen, I've got time. I'm playing Yakuza 7 Like a Dragon, and that's going pretty well. I need to get back to that because I've been busy in the month of October playing the Silent Hill 2s. That's right, I have been playing both Silent Hill 2s. During Spooky Pixel, people could pay money to switch between Silent Hill 2 and Silent Hill 2. Sometimes it was quite shocking. And I died several times this past week when I forgot to hit pause in Silent Hill 2 when the game switched to Silent Hill 2. Overall, really enjoying Silent Hill 2. I think the graphics are stunning, and the storytelling's really great, and it runs great on a PlayStation 2. So I think it's just fun to play. It's very tense for a game from 2004?
Oh, yeah.
2001, I want to say. Does that sound right?
Early PS2 game.
Yeah.
I can
Maybe.
look if you want.
No, I think it is. I think 2001 is Silent Hill. I don't know. You let me know.
2001.
Okay, it was 2001. Like I can hear the planes. And so it's fun to play. It's satisfying, and the mystery's just good enough. And every time I'm frustrated with it, I'm just like, like everything's straightforward, and the only times we kept getting lost is just because I wasn't paying attention or something happened, or I was switching back to the game. And that's fun. Silent Hill 2 on the PlayStation 5 is also good. It's a different video game. I like how they've expanded on a few things. But overall, I kind of wasn't... There was something about... Also, there was something about the enemies being too highly detailed that they weren't as scary anymore. In the PlayStation 2 one, they were just like 2 legs sewn together on top of each other, and it's just like, okay, perfect woman. And then there would just be like these weird people who would spit and vomit at you. And then in the remake, it's just like they're like these sewn up people, and they're like, it's just really gross. And I was like not as into it. Also, they do the thing now where it's like manage your health. There's guys who spawn outside, and there's no load screens between buildings, so I can't run away from enemies. They just all pile up and chase me. And it's like, what the fuck is happening? Perhaps something that was unique to me is the triangle button in the original game is the map, and the triangle button in the new game is drink your health potion. So I kept drinking health. I kept hitting the D-pad and hitting the map, and then in the original game you hold R2 and hit X to attack, and in the new game you just hit R2. So I kept holding R2 and hitting A in the new game, and nothing was happening. It's weird. So far I think I prefer the original Silent Hill 2. My only problem with it is it is save based, not autosave. I kept dying. I think I just turned the PlayStation off at the end of the night because I had lost so much progress after I checked like 2 floors and then died, and I was like, fuck. Overall, I thought the Spooky Pixel concept this year was pretty fun. I'm glad I worked everything out with it. It's a concept that would do really great if we had a lot of viewers, especially with Karen coming in and scaring me, people doing sound alerts, her shooting me with a Nerf gun. It was very fun. I might try to do something similar next year, but I currently am thinking about just like the way Ian did with sort of Fallout New Vegas. I might just play the rest of Silent Hill 2, the PlayStation 2 version, on stream, if I find some time for it. I think that'd be fun because it'll help me be brave, because that game's truly scary. But yeah, overall, Silent Hill 2s, play them if you got them. I'm out. I got to see how much money I made, how much of Kyle's money I made on those streams, to see if I made up for purchasing the freaking $70 PlayStation 5 game. God damn it. But to make up for it and make up for all the lost time, I've still been playing Factorio. Ian Gibson, Factorio Space Age, the DLC to one of the greatest games ever made. Truly a work of art, up there with Leonardo DiCaprio's Mona Lisa. But Ian, where are you? Are you on the planet yet?
I have 2 space platforms in orbit around the starting planet. I have 6 science going. I have researched the other planets, but I have not traveled to them yet. How about you?
I didn't play it all this weekend. I was playing very light this week because I didn't want to overdo it. And then I have researched, I have rocket fuel. I think I can build a rocket silo now. I have researched all of the blue science, so now I need to make red science. But I did hit the robot milestone, which is the first time I've ever hit that in Factorio.
Yes.
And there was just a magical moment where I just placed down a blueprint, and they all shuffled out of me and put all the blueprint stuff down, and I was so happy. It was an amazing, and they're so slow, these stupid little robots, and they're idiots, but they're gorgeous, and I don't have to click buttons anymore.
So
and
just to describe for people who haven't played Factorio, majority of the game you have to go to a location to place an item down. So if you want to build a little factory, you have to go there, place the factory down. And if you want to transfer items, you have to use conveyor belts and inserters, which are like robot arms that transfer between conveyor belts and buildings. what the robots give you is they give you two things. They give you, like Will said, you can put down blueprints, either like literal blueprints like I have copied a factory design I've used elsewhere, or even just a ghost image of a factory. You can put that down, and as long as there is a roboport within range, a robot will go grab that material from a chest somewhere and go place it for you. So it makes it super easy for you, like to just be like, oh, I did it just an hour ago. I had like 40 smelters and a bunch of conveyor belts set up somewhere else, and I was like, oh, I need that same setup over here. So I just Control C, select it all, and then I moved over to where I want it, and I just clicked. And it took the robots a little while, but they literally just slowly built the thing and brought all this shit. And then the crazy part of it is that Will mentioned this last time, and I've been really diving into it, which is remote view, which they've really expanded quality of life here, which means if you're in one part of your base, you go to the map, you hit M to open the map, and then in the map you can zoom in, and it gives you pretty much the same view as if you were at a different part of the base, and you can place blueprints there. And as long as the robots are in range, they will build over there. So I'm actually doing a majority of my building from the map now. And I did an entire thing over the last hour of gameplay where basically I was in one part of the base and I was like, oh shit, there's a whole fucking a 2-minute walk away is a whole copper patch and an iron patch, and I need to set up a rail system going out there, and I need to do smelters and a factory to get green circuits. And I did the entire thing remotely, just placing the blueprints, getting the whole thing set up. And it probably took like 10-15 minutes for the bots to carry all the stuff out there and slowly place it, but they did it. And it's fucking great. You don't have to run around anymore. It's really, really good.
Genuinely beautiful. I have that going. I set up a little factory to just make those robot frames because I was sick of making them. Yeah. I need to start converting and putting down the like robot node things, and I need to make chests that the robots can then use to bring me items.
Yeah. It's a little weird. I think they changed the tech a little bit. It was always like this, where basically you unlock the very basic chests at first, which are basically just like you get a yellow chest, you place the yellow chest down, and what it means is if you put stuff in that yellow chest, any bot can use it for construction. So like when I was doing that remote building, it would be like, oh, hey, you need 20 more furnaces. So I would craft the 20 furnaces, put them in a yellow chest next to me, and then the bots would come grab them from the yellow chest and put them out there. You get that with like the first tier of unlocking the bots. But what you should try and do is rush the second tier of logistics chests because you get more colors. But with those colors, what you can do is, again, the second part of bots is when you get those chests set up, they will carry things between chests for you. And so you can set it up. I have a black market section of my base where I'm literally like, these are like, they're one-off things. I don't want to tie them into the main bus. I don't need a lot of them, but I do need a steady supply. So for example, like assembler buildings, which is where you like you craft stuff basically. And I was like, I need a steady supply of assembler buildings. So I just put down 3 requester chests, and each of them requests the 3 ingredients from the logistics network. So there's bots constantly filling the chest with the 3 different ingredients. They robot arm inserter directly into the factory. Mm-hmm. And in that one little building, it makes the other factory buildings, and then it dumps that into a chest that the rest of the logistics market can use. So you can basically completely decouple from the logistics market, from the conveyor belt system and everything, and just have the bots ferry supplies where they need to be. But in order to do that, you've got to get that second level of chest tech set up. So I recommend rushing that, because once you do, you're not going to abandon conveyor belts completely, but it lets you just be like, oh, I need a factory and it needs these 3 ingredients, and boom, I can put it down anywhere in the logistics network and it'll do it. I don't have to route the ingredients there. The bots will do it for me. It's fantastic.
That sounds nice. Currently, I had to take a break because my OG copper is about to run dry, so I used the robots to build a whole new copper place, and then I plugged the train into my train network, and now I just have to make every time I make a train, I make like whatever it is pickup, whatever it is _ drop off, and I just do those 2 things and build a station. So I have to finish that. I was literally doing that right before stream.
Yeah.
And then I need to rework my oil processing. I unlocked advanced oil processing. I got lubricant going, but it keeps I keep overfilling everything, and then it can no longer make more oil. And there's a buffer thing you can build that I looked into, and I thought I built it correctly, but I think I have to readjust it. But you can basically crack
it's just
light oil back into stuff.
That's one thing you can do. The bad solution, but guess what, fuckers, it works, is you just build a whole bunch of buffer tanks, which are like liquid chests, and you just attach them. And then the other thing I would recommend, this is new in the expansion, I believe, is that all the fuel you can use to make solid fuel, so like monopropellant goes into solid fuel, liquid fuel into solid fuel, and then that solid fuel is then used for rocket fuel, which is super important for space age stuff. So I would just take whatever surplus you have right now, just have it go to at least solid fuel, and then into rocket fuel.
So I have it into rocket fuel. The rocket fuel chest I was loading everything into is full now, so I need to space a couple of those more out so it's just running, because right now I'm really low on lubricant. Yeah. I also have enemies turned on, so I did unlock the tank, which is great. But I need to, with enemies it's not so bad right now because I just have to manage where my pollution is hitting. If my pollution is hitting a nest, it means they'll come attack. So I'm just looking to make sure there's no one nearby. But there's a big huge oil field above my current oil field that I just want to go grab, run a pipeline to tie it into my current setup. So I'm just good on honestly, oil for a bit.
You're at the point where forget the tank, forget all that shit, just set up artillery shells, and then all you have to do is put down a little artillery and a bot chest to feed it, and it will automatically take out any nest in range.
I think
and then you don't have to worry about enemies anymore, basically.
I don't know if they moved artillery, but I'm 2 or 3 sciences away from artillery.
Oh, they must have moved it then.
I think it's pretty far down now. You need a lot more stuff. I might be wrong, but I remember looking and being like, oh, it's going to be a while. They also don't they don't come from that. If you get rid of their nests, they don't come very far. So I'm not too worried about it, but it is a fun distraction that I'm enjoying. So
yeah, I'm excited for you to start dicking around with space platforms and see how you like.
Yeah, those. I will consider getting into space and having a space platform my first Factorio victory. I'm not going to stop there, but I can see myself. I'm really trying to pace it out because I know those other planets are kind of gnarly, so I'm really trying to plan it out. But it's fun and I'm enjoying it. And go play Factorio. That's it. That's the games we've been playing this week, folks. Which means it's time for the news. Ian Gibson, Master Newsmaker, Master News Master News Bader. There we go. Ruth Bader Ginsburg himself. Ian, please tell me the news.
Do you guys ever play Animal Crossing Pocket Camp?
Yes.
Not personally.
That was one of our first videos, right?
That
Didn't we
was
capture it off my phone?
I think it was one of the first. It's not the first video we did because that was Ashen, which I will always hold near and dear to one of the games I legit beat before I reviewed it. But yeah, I think it was one of the first videos we did, and that the game's not bad.
Yeah, it was okay. It wasn't a full Animal Crossing, but at the same time, it wasn't a full mobile game where it felt riddled with timers and stuff and everything. But long story short, I believe this was already kind of announced that they're ending Animal Crossing Pocket Camp, but they announced recently that there will be a new paid offline version, which launches on December 3rd for $9.99. Includes all previous items and events from the past 7 years without any in-game purchases or microtransactions, plus 1 year of new events. This is a fantastic precedent. They're not setting it, but there's very few games that follow this. But this is what you should do when you shut down a game, right? Especially a mobile game.
Agreed. I was thinking to myself, if Destiny ever ends, them just being oh, here's Destiny 1 and 2 with all the content, all the
offline.
Like here's
Didn't
all
they
the
already
the
rip
everything.
out Destiny 2 content, like even in the current version?
Yes,
but
they
I mean,
have,
you
yeah.
still have to like sit down and buy everything, and probably have to do
Yeah.
stuff with it, anyways. But I agree. I think this is a great. I mean, they're not setting the precedent, but it's Nintendo doing it. I think that's cool. When I saw this news, I was like, oh, that's like genuinely a nice gesture to do that. So it's very cool.
And the other thing is this feels like a great way to take a game that you can't support anymore. The recurring revenue isn't quite there to justify continued support or new development, etc. But you're like, you know what? Goodwill gesture to the community, but also, hey, we can make $10 a copy off of this. Like, this really does feel like a win-win, because you have a smaller fan base. It's not there enough to justify the game as it continues going. But there's people like us that are like, you know what? Maybe I should pay $10 for this. Maybe I got a flight coming up, whatever. Maybe I'll try it out. Maybe I got an Animal Crossing itch, and I'm like, yeah, remember that mobile game has everything in it. It's $10, etc. So I really want to see more mobile games do this. It feels like a great idea.
Even just live service in general, even if it's not mobile, like
yeah.
The Crew 2 should do this instead of just not being accessible anymore.
Is the Crew 2 gone?
I think it's the Crew 1 or 2, but I think it is 2. Is you just can't do anything with it anymore.
Yeah, I think it's both. Yeah. Hey, speaking of great ideas, Cyberpunk 2077 is going to launch on the Mac next year. Are you guys excited to pick up your copy?
Yeah, for the Mac that I definitely own.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I look, I gotta be honest with you. Why the fuck are they doing this? And my evidence is the news stories back in July saying that according to mobilegamer.biz, under 2,000 people have played Resident Evil 7 on iOS. Granted, that's a mobile version, but Apple
also pretty sure that was a really expensive iOS game.
Yeah. Apple gave up on gaming. They don't need gamers. They're doing well. Why are they trying to claw this back? And also developers, why are they trying to put in the effort here? That market doesn't exist. What are you guys doing?
We all know hackers are very anti-Windows. They're very into Macs. It's like the other system you always hear about. Oh, don't go on Windows. Make sure don't install Windows. Just install Mac OS. It's so good and easy to use. It's like so great.
I don't get this.
I
really
genuinely wonder if Apple did so, because didn't Apple just announce like new Macs with like new Apple Silicon? I wonder if this was part of that.
Actually, sorry. I linked to The Verge. Did not actually read the article, but the second sentence says, according to Apple's announcement video for the new M4 equipped MacBook Pro, CD Projekt Red Fiber 2 will be
They
available.
definitely gave some money to CD Projekt.
That makes sense. If it's not too difficult, you can cover the cost and make a little profit. Why not go ahead and do this? It's money on the barrel.
I'm surprised Apple cares enough to do that, though.
Well, Tim Cook's probably sitting there being like, my teenager loved Cyberpunk, so we should put that on.
Yeah, I think they're worried about the chips, right? Because this is they've been running their own chips for a couple of years now, but they're still early enough that they feel like they have to prove it. And I think them showing off their new chips and saying, look, these chips are powerful, we're actually running AAA modern gaming titles on them. But it's a bit of a marketing push in a way.
I feel like the problem has not been the Apple Silicon. It's been that usually their PCs don't ship with a decent GPU.
Yeah, but it's a little bit, because when they were still using Intel chips, they started to not see as much of a benefit Mac Intel versus Windows Intel.
Well, and when they that time period when they were running both types of chips was also absolute hell for compatibility people everywhere.
Yeah, exactly. So that's why I think this is really just a marketing for them to say, we've got these new chips, we're really nailing it. How can we show that off? And it's like, we got Apple Intelligence running on them natively.
How can we show that downgraded version of Cyberpunk 2077? Let's go.
Yeah. So I think we finally worked it out. We know why this is happening. I'm gonna calm down a little bit. It's not a bad decision. It's not for gamers.
I
though.
should disclaimer this too. I'm technically a Microsoft employee, so take my opinion with a grain of salt. I should probably say that.
That's fair.
No, please tell us more.
Guys, we do have an update here from PlayStation Studios. That's right. It's time for another trip to the labor liminal zone. Unfortunately, they've made the decision to shut down Firewalk, the studio behind Concord, as well as another studio whose name I can't find quickly.
Neon
but
Koi.
Yeah, I was going to say Nino Kuni, which is not correct, but it's close.
That was actually pretty
close.
good. Yeah.
There it is, Neon Koi, buried in the middle. Neon Koi.
I buried because Neon Koi didn't release a game yet, so
Yeah.
just gone without even a real chance.
I don't want to say I don't know how to feel about this. I know how to feel about this. It's just harsh, and I don't like saying it. So I'll let you guys go first. Any thoughts or feelings on this?
I think the way I think about it is I am not surprised by this decision, but I do feel a lot of empathy for the folks that were impacted, because I don't feel like most of the developers that made Concord are the reason why Concord flopped and Sony closed the studio.
Yeah. I think for me, what I'm struggling with is Concord, we were talking about this last week. We were talking about this last week in the context of Jason Schreier's new book on Blizzard, and how a lot of Blizzard's success was like, we have a team, they work really well together, they keep making bangers, like let them cook for years and years and years, and if it works, they come out with Overwatch, right? They come out with World of Warcraft, etc. Concord is like the same strategy, and it just went all wrong, right? They had a team of veterans. They let them cook for years and years. They kept throwing money at them, and every time they looked at it, they said, "Yeah, this is looking good. This is looking good," and it came out absolute fucking bust. And to tie it back to what you're saying, I think my problem is I can't point at one person and say, "There's the stupid fucking executive that pushed a wrong decision," or like, "Oh, there's the creative director who made every wrong decision here." Like, I don't think there's anything critically wrong with the game. I don't think any one person made a wrong decision. I think it was again, no insider information here, but it feels like it was just a culture of perpetual bad decisions years over years, and executives that enforced that by just continuing to let them cook and gave them money for it.
It felt like a victim of a long dev cycle where, like, by the time the game actually came out, because they've been working on this thing for a long time. I want to say it was like 6 or 8 years.
Mm-hmm.
And if that came out 6 or 8 years ago, I feel like the game probably would have done really well. Like, if the game that they ended up with is what came out when they started, I feel like they would have done great. It feels like a game kind of locked in to the time when it was began, and also locked into a economic approach that I don't think works anymore.
Yeah.
Like having a hero shooter type thing like that is not free to play. It costs $40 just for someone, or 40, 50, whatever it was. Sorry, I forget whether it was 40
something
or 50,
like that, 40 or 50, yeah.
But having that entry cost in a genre where there's a ton of free options, like Marvel's Rivals was in beta at the same time that this was, but that game's free to play.
Yeah,
there's still Apex Legends, there's still Fortnite, there's still PUBG, there's still Warzone, there's still Overwatch 2, I could keep going on and on.
Were they coming in at
40
new?
or $50 is so hard.
No, I don't think there was anything new about it.
It didn't sound like they were. I didn't play much of it, so like I'm
sorry. They were doing one new thing, which was that I believe every week or every month they were releasing a new story cinematic.
Yeah, but
they were. But the first few they released were so
Yeah.
They were really just not
Yeah.
interesting. Like the
So
animation was good, like their art and stuff
Yeah.
was good. It was just like
So,
this is utterly uninteresting.
exactly. And that's why for me, like the quiet part I didn't want to say out loud, but I'll say it, is it sucks that people lost their jobs. It really does. But this feels like a studio that, you know, if the reported rumors are true, $400 million were spent on this game before marketing, and pretty much all of that is down the drain.
I thought it was 200.
The rumor from Colin Moriarty was 400 mil.
Damn.
Yeah, I don't think they have the breakdown
and
for it.
I just finished that Blizzard book. I think Titan was canceled at 80 million, and Bobby Kotick was pretty upset about that. So
so there's a Forbes article that says before the game hit alpha state, they'd already spent $200 million on it. And then after that, from 2021 to 2024 launch, Sony spent another $200 million on it.
Wild.
So that's the thing, is that, like, look, it sucks that people lost their jobs.
Cost that real bad.
Yeah. And this is a point where it's like, this studio put out an absolute flop. You cannot trust that team. You cannot trust anybody that touched that game, and you cannot spend another fucking cent on that studio. Get rid of it. It totally makes sense. It sucks, but this 100% makes sense.
400 million. That's like twice what they put into Last of Us Part 2.
Yeah, it's wild.
What was the budget for wasn't the budget for like GTA 5 or something 250 or 200?
Somewhere around there, yeah.
That was also,
I mean, that was a while ago, but
ago.
still, like, that's wild.
But yeah, like I think the leaks had like Spider-Man 2 at around 300
at like 2 or 300, yeah. But
Yeah.
even something like Alan Wake 2, which is a AAA title, plays fantastic, looks fantastic, etc., was like, I think it was 50 or 60 million. Like, it's wild that you put $400 million into a game and this is what you get from it. Like, even if it was successful, it would be tough for me to look at that game and say that's a $400 million game, regardless of how the market actually responds to it.
Yeah, that's wild.
Yeah. So it sucks.
The Sean Layden quote, I don't know if it was in any of your new stuff, but Sean Layden, who used to be at PlayStation, had said, like, games are so expensive, I think we're going into a time where people are going to start spinning up smaller teams. And rocking with those because it's getting out of hand.
Yeah, actually, that leads right into Business Journal news, which was from Jason Schreier, who kind of just talked to a lot of people in the industry and said that because of bloat, veteran video game developers are all going smaller. So a lot of these veteran video game developers that are leaving these big studios, one of their big mandates for their new studios that they're forming or joining is much, much smaller teams. They were talking about 40 to 80 to 120 people instead of, upward almost 1,000 people at their previous studios to kind of fight this bloat. I do want to highlight, there was somebody on Twitter called the Cartel Dell who had a really good point. I'll kind of summarize it here because it's a big point, but they said, hey, it's not like these studios are getting away with an entire AAA game from 90 people. They're going to lean heavily into outsourcing. So on the positive side, you have, industry veterans who are striking out on their own and creating studios on their own that are going to be less prone to bloat, et cetera, turning out games quicker and cheaper. But on the other hand, you have a lot more potential for exploitation of all these outsourced. You're going to have to help me out here, David. It's not outsourcing. That's not allowed anymore. It's not offshoring. It's not nearshoring. Oh, sorry. Centers of excellence. Is that the phrase now?
There's still outsourcing still used.
Oh no, but I mean, you're not allowed to call it that anymore. And you're not allowed to say offshoring.
People still call it that. You can look online for jobs for outsourcing producers.
Oh yeah.
Who just manage outsourcing.
The executive term is centers of excellence, as in we're going to find some place in a country with very low wages, and we're going to spin up a team there, and they're going to do all the work that used to be handled in-house, or at least in our country.
I mean, like some of the biggest ones are Eastern Europe's like full of those now.
Yeah. Although honestly, they're on the back foot. It's all about India now. because they're cheaper than Eastern Europe. Like our company moved out of Eastern Europe into India for our...
but I mean, like, look at Ubisoft. They did that. They showed the Prince of Persia remake that was being made by the studio they spun up in India, and the backlash was so bad they restarted the entire game.
Yeah, but I think so. I think that's where part of it, and this guy on Twitter kind of hits on this, is that the problem with that was that they had a studio in India. That's not what they want to do, which is that you have all the creative directors and the leads and the heads in the US, and they're just outsourcing the shit work, the work that doesn't allow for creativity, that doesn't allow for any job growth whatsoever. That's where we're going to have some exploitation we got to be worried about with these quote unquote small studios. I mean,
it's been happening for QA in the entire games industry, like really bad. Like pretty much everyone's just gotten rid of their QA. It's all a bunch of contracting companies in Eastern Europe and like Asia. Like that's, some of them are doing like English localization production and stuff too, like, which I can't imagine will go well in the next few years. Like I think in my area, there was a Sega Atlas office, and they laid off. It's an entirely localization office. They laid off all except like 5 QA people there. They had like 50, and they're outsourcing everything. And it's just like, it's absolutely wild. That everyone, and like, we'll find out in a few years whether that strategy works, but I have a feeling it won't.
My company took that strategy a couple of years ago, and let me tell you, it's not fucking working, folks.
We should put tariffs on outsourcing. We'll get more money.
It's just like, I'll tell you what the problem is. The problem is, like, it is possible to do that, but the executives are so fucking short-minded that, like, in order for it to work properly, you need transition and you need hand-holding, right? You can't just kill an entire team and spin up that same team elsewhere. You need a gradual transition and training to make sure that the processes and the quality and the throughput stays the same, right?
Generally won't happen, because as soon as people see that they're training a bunch of people in another country, they leave because they see the writing on the wall. Yeah,
and then the executives go, well, then fuck it, let's lay them off anyways. And all of a sudden you've got a brand new team, and there's nobody to train them, nobody to show them process, nobody to help them out. And it's like you're starting from fucking scratch on a product that already exists.
Especially when a lot of the, I don't think this is the case so much in like Eastern Europe anymore. But like with other regions that don't have heavily developed gaming industries in them, like the skills haven't been built up. Like, because there are a bunch of contracting houses in the US that are well regarded, like Iron Galaxy. They work on a ton of stuff. Not Creative Assembly, Certain Affinity. They did a bunch of work on Halo. They're basically co-devs on Halo, but they're not a Microsoft studio. There's Blind Squirrel, who does a bunch of like porting work, and Nixus, who PlayStation bought, same type of thing. There's a bunch of good studios that are not doing a ton of their own in-house development, but they pay the bills by working for these other studios, and have built up their skills. And then sometimes they build up their skills and then they'll try and build their own game. What was the Iron Galaxy one they did? Was it Rumbleverse?
Rumbleverse.
Yeah, which like not a game for me, but I know a bunch of people that played that game and loved it. Yeah. And like I don't know if it made enough. I don't know if it made its money back, but I know a lot of people really enjoyed that game for the brief bit it was out. But like, I won't be surprised if more and more of those pop up as a part of this. You get someone who goes from a AAA, there's a bunch of layoffs, they spin up a small studio, they take a bunch of contract gigs to keep themselves afloat while a small team continues to work on a in-house project, and then once they have the funds built up, the whole team shifts over. Like, I imagine that's going to happen a lot.
But to your point though, not to run counter to that, I just don't see that happening with American studios, because the executives want to outsource to second and third world countries where it will cost them a lot cheaper, as opposed to let's work with Iron Galaxy, let's work with a new US studio.
What I imagine will happen is they will do that first, and then when it doesn't work, then they call Iron Galaxy. There'll be a couple years, and then they go, people to be like, oh, okay, well, we don't have the room to hire all these people, but we can probably go to another studio who can help get us over this hump, this situation that we have somehow found ourselves in.
Yeah, man. software industries. There's always problems in the software industry, but it's particularly fucked right now.
It's wild right now. Yeah.
Hey, I'm okay. I'm in middle management, so
Hell yeah.
I'm a
Me
little bit
too!
safer. A little bit safer, you know. Okay. Let's hit some final bits here. We do have some entertainment news. It's finally happening. Oregon Trail is the next game getting a blockbuster movie adaptation, according to Eurogamer. This is an action comedy developed by Apple, with Will Speck and Josh Gordon on board to direct and produce. It is slated to include a number of original tracks, quote, in the vein of Barbie, end quote. I'm sorry, these are from the guys who did. The music will be provided by Ben Pasek and Justin Paul, who recently secured an Emmy
it's
for
an
their
Oregon
work on
Trail
Only Murders.
musical?
It'll have musical elements, supposedly,
okay.
but it's from the guys who did musical
Joker
bits
too.
in Only Murders in the Building, which I don't know if they're talking about the musical season or if they're just talking about like the little musical cues and moments they have, which are pretty good. But anyways,
see, you lost me at the very beginning when you said Oregon Trail blockbuster movie. You brought me back with action comedy because I was like, you know what? If they do a Clue version of Oregon Trail where there's like multiple endings and people are dying of dysentery and floating down a river when they try and like caulk the boat and float across or whatever, like that could be funny. I could be into that. And then you kept going into the musical numbers and you lost me again. So
I don't disagree with you. It's just I was there from the beginning because I've been watching some Westerns lately. Westerns, it's such a weird moment for Westerns right now because Westerns, the people hunger for Westerns to such an extent that they will watch shit like Yellowstone because it's just enough of a Western for them to be like, oh, like people are so fucking desperate for a great Western. And you could just make a semi-serious Oregon Trail Western style movie where it's like you start out with 100 people and they're moving west and things are getting worse and worse and they've just got to try and make it. And then they finally make it there, but it's like 20 of them left. And it's just like, that would be a great fucking Western.
Have you seen those new Kevin Costner films? The West
I haven't.
Absolutely not.
I've
heard
keep meaning to
mixed.
sit down.
I want
with
to watch them
because I heard they're pretty like great for just what they are, like being a West. And I think they touch on a lot of that stuff. So I wonder if this Oregon Trail originally started as a more serious thing, and then those like they didn't scrap it, but they put the second one out on digital because they didn't want to release it in theaters 3 months later or whatever, because it was supposed to be like a double feature thing. So I wonder if that played into it a little bit. But there's also when YouTube was first around, there was a comedy troupe that made an Oregon Trail movie trailer, and now all I remember, it like devolves into all the characters having dysentery and like complaining about having watery
shitting their
butts.
brains out, yeah.
And then they'd be like,
seen their dysentery.
he's like, oh, here's the grave of old poop face, and they're like traveling past it. So that's all I think about now with that.
Yeah. Do you guys ever see? I think it was The Ballad of Buster Scruggs.
No.
Coen Brothers movie. It was
it
pretty good. It was a Western, but it was basically like a couple different short segments kind of put together as a Western. One of the segments was a wagon train traveling west and like how those people interacted and like an Indian attack they come under. And thinking about it, I'm like, yeah, give me 2 fucking hours of that. Like it really is. I'm fine with it being an action comedy. That would be very unique, but they could also just make a straight fucking Western and people would go wild for it. Especially the old white people.
Old white people.
You know, the people that watch Yellowstone. You know, the Trump voters. I'm gonna skip. You guys ever play the horror game Outlast?
Yeah.
I think I played a little bit of it actually. And
is it?
Hey, you know what? I do think that would possibly be a good horror movie. Have fun with it.
Okay, because they're making one.
I have nothing else to say about that other than I feel like that could be adapted pretty easily.
It's coming from Lionsgate. Okay, this is such a fucking weird. Okay, so Saw Studio Lionsgate bringing iconic horror game Outlast to the big screen.
Lionsgate
I understand
makes a bunch of shit.
I was about to say, I was like, I understand they feel like they have to tie it in there, but Lionsgate makes it. It's not like they're a horror studio; they're just giant fucking movie studio.
One of the sons of one of their executives was on the same floor as me in college, and he was a giant douchebag. We got him kicked out.
Oh wow! But apparently, the producer here is prolific horror film producer Roy Lee. This is according to BloodyDisgusting.com, who did It, Barbarian, Late Night with the Devil, and Strange Darling. And at least those last three have gotten very good reception. So
I thought
I
it
watched
had really
Barbarian.
good reception too. Like
It part
chapter
1
yeah,
was
yeah,
very good.
Yeah.
Chapter 2 I turned off because it was bad.
I never watched it, but yeah, I especially Strange Darling. Strange Darling it's a little indie right now. I think it's just now becoming available. I've heard it's fantastic, and people were like, "Don't even watch the trailer. Like, don't read anything about it. Like, it's the less you know, the better."
I really liked Barbarian. I thought it was very well done. That's another one don't watch a trailer or anything. Just watch the movie. It's very good. Ian, I will notice that you skipped over the layoffs of my people, and I think that's tragic. I'd like to shout out all the GameSpot people, and also fuck fandom. It sucks. They laid off so many people. I did get an inside scoop though. Inside scoop right for this podcast. Apparently, I don't know if you gentlemen have heard of this. There's a company called Adlytics. I don't know if you've heard of it. They do ad reporting about. They're very relatively recent, and they put reporting out. Apparently, they had put a big report out about fandom that it seemed, to my ears, kind of scummy, where they said, hey, there's all these wiki pages that are dead pages that nobody goes to because there's so many wikis and all this sort of stuff. Yeah. But there's pages like, oh, maybe there's a page for the N-word, or maybe there's a page for cocaine, or maybe there's a page for this. And your ads are being served on those pages if people go to those pages, and it like spooked all the advertisement with fandom apparently, and apparently people were assured it wasn't that big, but it must have been a lot bigger for them to. Like I was saying, I was expecting these layoffs in January, like when mine were, and I think something big happened, and I think it's due to that. So yeah. And not that fandom doesn't deserve to lose advertisers. Those people don't deserve to lose their jobs, but also to be like, uh-oh, your stuff's being shown on, like, it could be like any page, like a historical page or something, like to use that sort of thing, to lose out on that is kind of scummy.
You could also just have like a page for save data pilled. So like you could have a page that's like on the Ace Attorney wiki for cocaine and how much it came up in different court cases.
Right.
And that's not like
but it also could have been easily solved like something. Hey, we're gonna write a new thing into the contract that it won't show up. We'll filter out these pages and all that sort of stuff. And I think it was the same thing with X, where X was more real, that people were just ditching it because they're like, oh shit, like we don't want our stuff.
Yeah, because all their fucking content
branding
is now in AI without anyone.
So I think maybe.
Also, like, if you post other people's articles in their AI, which is fucked up and shouldn't be legal. But,
So I think advertisers were thinking it was like an X 2.0 sort of thing. So
it really sucks with the modern media market. You are relying so much on somebody else's algorithm in terms of how many views you get, and that's going to dictate how ad pays are out. So I'll give you an example. I listened to This American Life, like classic NPR show, podcast, etc. Mount Rushmore of podcasts, basically. They've been around forever, and this year, just recently, they had to start what is basically a Patreon. They were like, and they explained it. They're like, hey, there's been a giant crash in the podcast ad market, and even though we're one of the biggest fucking podcasts out there, we are expecting to lose 1/3 of our ad revenue in the coming year because of that crash. Same number of listeners, same ads and everything, but because of an adjustment on the rates, et cetera, in the crash, 1/3 of our ad revenue goes away. They're like, so the only way we're going to stay this size is we have to launch like a subscriber program. Like all the episodes are still free, but you can do a Patreon to support us, etc. And it's fucking wild to hear that, because that's not Subpixel, that's not Save Data, that's not Fandom. That's a giant fucking decades long NPR radio show podcast, like one of the best to listen to by millions of people. They spawn Serial, etc., and they're having to go to subscription support because of the fucking ad revenue algorithms, etc. It's just fucked, the media market and how it's been built nowadays, payment wise.
I think advertisers learned there's a skip 30 seconds button on most podcast apps. But also, I think I was even saying this because I do contract work with some advertisers and I'm working on stuff. And I'm like, if there's an ad on my TV, I'll like, there's 50 fucking minute long ads now on YouTube on my TV. I just hit the mute button. I'm like, I don't care. Like, stop. Like, mute, I'm like actively don't think about products that are advertised to me now. Like, I think about like ads that come up and I just go like, I don't want to use your fucking product. Like, it's just get out of my face. And I think so many people are attuned to be suspicious of advertisements, to be all that sort of stuff. Like, even if I got an advertisement that fit my exact problem and was like, it's for free, don't worry about it, we'll cover it, I'd be like, fuck you, I don't want
I'd be suspicious
bars of gold delivered to my house for free. Like, fuck off.
Like, do either of you do the like Google rewards surveys?
No.
Dude, I do those. Every so often I'll get one that's about like, how much do I trust a search? How much do I trust the answer that Google gives me? How much do I trust their new AI? And it's like, literally not at all to all of them. They're like, how do you feel about ads? I'm like, there's too many. Also, I searched how to do a thing, and the top results were all shopping pieces. I'm like, that's not what I'm looking for. Tell me how to tie a shoe. Yeah, I know how to tie a shoe. That was just the first example that came to my head.
It's just so fucked. It's like the whole story about years ago, everybody pivoted to video because they were like, look at our fucking video numbers, they're going wild, especially on Facebook. And then it turned out that Facebook for months was just inflating their video numbers by just counting it as an autoplay every time somebody scrolled past it. And it's just stupid fucking shit like that has caused it, because people build their whole businesses on it, and they kind of have to, because they're building it around YouTube or ad revenue, etc. And it's like just to say this, the number one most effective form of advertising in terms of how many people you have to put it in front of and how many of those come back as customers to this day is mailed advertisements. Wow. That is still the most effective, which is crazy, because everybody's chasing fucking digital. And it's like we did it on Roblox, right? Roblox with friends. I spent $20 and I got 200,000 impressions. And even talking about this, I'm like, holy shit, that's crazy. I only spent $20. What if we made a Subpixel ad and Rubplay? And it's like, that's so I got in front of 200,000 people. But then you have to remember, those numbers are fake and there's very little engagement there, you know?
Oh yeah, we put, I think it was the first D&D campaign we did. I don't remember if this was on purpose or not, but we put an entire episode as an ad on YouTube. And it was like an hour and a half long.
Oh my God. What happened?
Well, the first video had a ton of views because a ton of people, like every time the ad played, basically got a view. So it was just artificially inflating it. And there was a bunch of engagement because a bunch of people were like, why is this hour and a half long? Yeah. And then as soon as we did episode 2, there was nothing else. Like no one watched it.
Exactly. Yeah.
So there's you get that engagement for what you pay for, but that's it.
Yeah. And I'll tell you this, Subpixel, we've run ads for years, and it's because we basically figured out that it's basically $1 per subscriber. So if you we were doing like $3 a day in YouTube ads on selected videos, and as long as you targeted right, we would get about 3 new subs a day. And it's not great money spent, but for a channel that was basically dead and not growing at all, we have gotten some growth and some views from it. So it's one of those things where it's like, don't put your whole fucking business behind it. You've got to manipulate them as much as they're fucking manipulating you.
Nightmare.
Yeah, so don't misclick an ad ever. They're gonna think you want whatever that product was. Thanks, Twitter.
Yeah.
I get so many. I accidentally fat fingered a Trump ad. That was the worst mistake of my life.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
That's the worst.
Because you already voted for him, like early voting, so it's like.
And I already have a Bible. It's called the
I literally
and it's
don't
right behind me.
Your Trump Bible?
Yeah. Made in China.
That's it. Let's get out of here. It's my bedtime.
Well, there's a content call out that David kindly put here. And
a wishlist
spotlight.
Talk
about it.
Wishlist Spotlight.
And he's going to talk about it for at least half an hour. So let's get into it.
Let's go. No. So the one I put on here is a game I played at PAX West this year called Tethergeist. It is very reminiscent of Celeste, but instead of doing like double jumps and stuff, you literally like have a little ghosty geist guy that you toss out and can like teleport to. And there's some other mechanics and stuff going on here too. But playing at PAX, it was really very good 2D platformer that I had a lot of fun with. They have a Kickstarter too that I backed. So help them out. I believe they're planning on releasing first half of next year. Kickstarter's kind of just to help them get the game across the line and actually spend time on it and port it to other platforms and stuff. So it's a fun little game. Very cute art style too. Very like, I almost want to say it's Ni no Kuni-esque or Ghibli-esque art style on it. So
yeah, a little bit. It seems like a game I want to play with the music off. So I'm really excited about that. Just like
I can't fucking. I'm so mad at you for that. Still mad.
Someday I'll replay it.
Still mad.
Folks, that's going to do it for the show this week. Thank you so much for tuning in. Tomorrow night, 9 p.m. Eastern, more Arma with Ian. Next week, tune into the schedule on Monday because it's going to be a weird one because we're all going to Florida for Extra Life. Right after we vote. It'll be great. It won't be a sad weekend. It'll be a happy weekend. I'm telling myself every day I'm telling myself. David, thank you so much.
Your Extra Life is November 9th, right?
Yes, our Extra Life is November 9th, but not the same day as Save Data, which David is from at Save Data Team. You can find all of their hot, beautiful content there. They do stuff. I don't pay attention to it anymore, but they do stuff. It's great and fun. Ian Gibson at Think Gibson. I'm Will Crosby at Hunt270. Subpixelfilms.com is where you can go follow us on all sorts of different things and check them out. Until then, we'll see you all next week. Bye.
Bye.